Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we're doing something a little bit different. So I'm using the Pansies Lovely Layers. I showed you this sentiment set, but I didn't end up using it. And then this is the Spring Seeds. They're matching dies. This is the Seed Packet die, and then the Slice and Stump. So here was kind of my idea. This is just, I cut all of my pieces parts for the sliced stumps and the pansies out of white cardstock. I just wanted to show you here. What I like to do is I kind of sort them, like I put them all in a little cuppy and then I sort them all out. You can, which will sometimes make your life easier, go in and do some ink blending on your larger pieces to give yourself a base color. I prefer to do this versus cutting it out of solid colored cardstock because it offers more color variation, which is more realistic to me than just a solid color cardstock. So I just wanted to show you, I only did it for the stumps and the leaves. I didn't do it for any of the parts of the flower. And then and just two colors, because I'm just using it as the base color. So I use Brush Corduroy and Mowed Lawn. Once I, like, this is how the idea came about. I feel like I should be better served waiting to tell this portion of it until I'm actually doing the coloring. Just because they're like, this part is so super edited down. I like to when I'm sorting them, I put all of my like pieces parts together. I'm coloring two of each. So two large pansy blooms and two little buds. So that way I only ended up using three, but that is how many I did, just so I knew I would have enough for my card. And then I just lined them up on my glass mat. So that way, as I'm coloring them, I can just kind of grab them as I'm going. For the Slice and Stump, this already has a base layer on it. So I just took and actually, honestly, I ended up using an even lighter color than this. This is an E55. I ended up using an E53. And I turned it on its side so that it just skims the top of the embossed areas. And this is going to give me more color variation. This one did come out a little bit dark, and that's why I switched over to the E53. For the bark portion of the slice, I am using all three of the colors. So all of the Lovely Layers, when you die cut them, they also emboss detail into them. That's one of the reasons why they look so realistic and they're amazing to work with. And so I like to add my coloring on top of that, but if you, like in this case, I put down a really light color over the edge of the bark, and then when I'm going in with my marker, I'm just kind of skimming it over the top. I'm not pushing it into the paper, and that's preserving the indented portions in the lighter color. Now, if I went in with the tip directly up and down and colored over this, it would fill those spots in. So you kind of have to turn your marker at an angle so it's more horizontal than it is vertical, so that you can just skim the edge portions. And then once I had worked out to my darkest color, then I'm just going back in with my lightest to kind of blend everything out. And that's how I colored all of them. That way they were exactly the same. For the leaves, which is what we're going to be doing next, I'm using a 3-color green blend. Here you can see this is just it all together. I didn't adhere them yet. But I'm using a 3-color blend for this. And again, there's tons that you can see that embossed detail. I'm going to use the ruffled edge to give me an idea of where my shading needs to go. And so I'm just kind of going in between the, like where it's indented, in between those little like grooves, and doing a little triangle of color. I'm just kind of flicking it in one time and then filling in the center a bit darker and then flicking that out in between the other triangles. And this is going to give us tons of dimension, tons of movement. Plus we still have that really awesome embossing effect that's already onto the cardstock from the die cutting. So at the end of it, it looks so much more dimensional. than it would be if it was just one flat color. And I'll show you them next to each other so that you can see the difference between adding the coloring and not adding the coloring. Also, you don't necessarily have to use markers if you colored pencils, or if you cut them out of watercolor paper and you want to watercolor them. All of those things are options. Any coloring medium will work for this. My preferred coloring medium is just alcohol markers. For the stem, for the bud, because of those embossed lines, I can see that the top portion of this is folded back, and then it has like a little, I'm sure there's a word for it, like where the flower meets the stem, there's like a little rounded area. I'm sure there's a word for it, but I don't know what it is. And so I'm adding shading there as well. And then that way it's just, you're going to see the multiple areas of the stem, and it's not just one flat green color. We're putting in that detail and that to create that dimension that we're looking for. For the some kids are about to ring my doorbell. Yeah, summertime. Anywho, for the centers, I did look, and you're gonna think, maybe you already did when you saw the original photo. Like, I colored pansies, but I colored them pink. Did you know that pansies come in all kinds of colors? Now, when I think of a pansy, I think of a yellow center with a purple or a blue violet kind of bloom. But they actually come in all kinds of colors. And so I really liked the pink ones. And since I have done a pansy in that more kind of what I view as traditional coloring with the purple and the yellow, I did that for another video using this exact same dye. I wanted to do something different. And so I chose the pink ones. And I looked to double check that the centers of those pink ones are still yellow. And that is why I chose that color combination. If you've watched any of the videos where I've used the Lovely Layers in the past, you know that when I'm putting them together, the trick that I use to figure out where the shading goes is I put one die cut on top of the other. I take my lightest color and I trace that edge, so then I know where to put all of my shading. And I also outline the edge in my lightest color, so that way when they're all stacked on top of each other, there's no white showing through. So from here on out, I'm just going to be showing you how I do the coloring. The only thing to note is I'm using those same triangles on the little indented areas. Now, this is the furthest back portion of the flower, so there's not going to be a whole lot going on here because it's just like a little lip of a petal. But you'll see as we get closer to the front that we have a lot more surface area that we're covering. I always double check that everything's covered where I need it to be covered. And then I just move on to the next one. And so again, using anywhere that it's ruffled, that it's indented, is where you're going to want to put those little triangles of color. There isn't really a right or a wrong way to do the triangles. I like to do it with kind of like one flick motion so that it's wider at the top and thinner at the edge. But if you are not there with your flicking skill level yet, like, don't worry, just draw in a triangle and then blend it out with your lighter colors. Like, it will still look totally fine. So, how I got this idea, what I originally started to say, was when I was at Create for Honeybee, the make and take that we did was these spring seed packets, and we did the little forget-me-nots, which was totally adorable. And then Melissa and Lisa actually had brought the forget-me-not seeds, and so we made the seed packets with the seed packet die. We actually made seed packets with the cute little, we colored the little forget-me-nots. And then they could fill up their seed packet with forget-me-not seeds and then take that home. And so that is what gave me the idea, because I thought, well, how cool, you're not going to give somebody a gift without giving them a card. So how cute would it be to kind of make it one and the same? And so this is how we ended up with this Slimline card that we have here today. I just did it with the pansies because I had a seed packet that matched a Lovely Layers die, honestly. Like, that's how that happened. There's also, this is the spring seeds, but there's Seeds of Kindness, which have a strawberry packet in there, and they have the Lovely Layers strawberries dies, so those would be great too. You could really do any of it. Like, you could combine the wildflowers with like the blueberries or something like that. Like, there's a ton that you could do. They don't have to be super matchy. But if you watch my channel, you know I like to be matchy. I don't. It just makes me happy. But anyway, so I did mine as if the packet would stay on the card, and you'll see that when we bring everything together. But I'll also point out how you could do it so that the seed packet could be removed and the card would still stay intact. It wouldn't bother me if I was giving the seed packet as a gift for them to then remove the seed packet and, keep the card as it was, or to just remove the seeds and leave the seed packet on the card front, whichever. So that is how it came about, because I thought it was such a cute little idea for make and take, to be able to take the little seed packets. Plus, I know so many people in my life. I am not, you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, I'm like a black thumb. But I know so many people who are gardeners, like really good ones. So here, in order for it to really look like a pansy, the pink pansies actually have like more of a purple section here on like those bottom 3 drop leaves. So I'm going in with a V06 and I am drawing in those little circle areas to look like a pansy. And then I'm going to go in with the V09. Remember, we talked about that embossed section that gets put in there. Well, part of the embossed section for these 3 petals is actually the veining that you would normally see in pansies. And so I'm going in with this V09 and I'm filling in the veining section. This you want to have a super light hand for, and you want to keep your marker as vertical as possible. So only just like the tiniest bit of your tip of your marker is touching those veins, so that way you don't blow out of the indentation. And I really thought that this kind of, brought them up a notch to make them genuinely look like pansies with those little sections. So now once this is done, I'm going to show you the little bud. It's the same thing that we have been doing. The only difference is, instead of using one petal on top of the other, for this petal here, I actually have to use the stem because it's tucked into the stem. And so I'm going to use that as my guide to where my shadow will go for this top petal. So yeah, anyway, that's the origins of this card. As far as my life goes, we're slowly but surely getting caught back up. In no short thanks to my husband for being super supportive and trying to help me make that happen. In fact, as I do this voiceover, because I had some technological difficulties earlier, yes, he came up and looked at it. Yes, he fixed it immediately. No, I don't know what kind of magic he has. I don't know why it works that way, but it works that way. I'm just happy to be able to do my voiceover, to be quite honest. So normally I do my things a bit earlier in the day. But because I had my technology issues, I'm actually doing this voiceover after dinner, which is late for me. Normally I wouldn't even, I would just be like, well, it is what it is. Like, it's too late to put it up. I'm just going to move on. But here's why I'm not going to do that. Because that has been, honestly, that's always my attitude, is it's too late to put it up. So I'm just going to move on. And then that's how we ended up going a week without any videos whatsoever, because every single time I got one done, it was too late. And so it's going to go up when it goes up, and, it'll be there for whoever wants to watch it. That's how I feel about it. So here, don't be afraid to go back in and touch up any areas that you need to. Like, even though we're double checking as we go, sometimes there are some white spots on the sides that do get missed. Don't worry about it. You can still fix it after it's all put together. So here, I'm using my little tweezers to put down my center, the darker portion first, and then the lighter kind of like lip of the center is going to go in second, and then that pansy is complete. You tell me, like, do you like the pink ones? Do you associate the pink ones with pansies? I don't know that I do. I'm going to be honest. I think that it's really pretty. I think it's a pretty flower. I just don't know if my brain's like, that's a pansy, because I'm missing that purple or blue, with the yellow, which is how I'm used to seeing them. Not that I see them a lot, because like I said, I don't own a lot of, the only plants I have are some really beautiful hydrangeas. These are outdoor plants I'm talking about. Are really beautiful hydrangeas that were here when we bought the house, and all we did was relocate them. And then we bought some azaleas for like at the end of last summer, and planted them, well, it was like midsummer, and planted them where the hydrangeas used to be. And then this year, my husband went out there and he was like, Kelly, I think they're dead. Like, they're brown sticks. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like, we spend too much money on these things for them to be dead. Here, so I'm stamping the, this is the pansy, this is the actual stamp from the seed packet for the spring seeds. And I'm going to color these the same way so that it's super, like I said, super matchy-matchy. The only difference is you can see these pansies are not as ruffled as the Lovely Layers, which is totally fine. But so I'm not going to be adding quite as many triangles. If it is a round, smooth petal, then I'm coloring it as if it is a round, smooth petal. I'm not going to try to force triangles of ruffles onto a smooth black outline like this. It's not going to look right. Sometimes you just have to kind of embrace it for what it is. Now, this pansy to the right does have some ruffling on some of its leaves. For those ones, I will put the triangles in, but if it's a smooth line, I'm not trying to fabricate it. So then I went ahead and did the same thing with the purples on just those little, like those 3 little drop leaves. And then I'm going to do all of the coloring. I didn't have to put it in the VO9 on this because it has the veining done in the black stamping. I did my centers yellow. And then here's the thing that I find very interesting. So when I did the seed packets for the make and take, I made the outline, this kind of frame. I did it in blue. And we found that it was really interesting because Kelly, a Kahoot, and I were sharing the table. So like if I needed a break, she would take over. And Kelly was like just letting people do whatever they wanted. She was like, just color whatever color you want. These are the markers we have, color whatever you want. And it was so interesting to see all the different color like some people colored it green and some people colored it like a white with the gray shadows. Some people colored it purple. Some people colored it a combination of the two. So this kind of frame can really just be whatever you want. I chose to do the kind of gold combination just to bring in another color besides green and pink. And I think that it turned out fine. So back to my azaleas. So I was like, no, we've paid too much money for these things to be dead. And I don't know anything about azaleas. So I started like getting on the Google, and basically they were like, scrape the stem, it's a stem. Scrape the stem with your fingernail. If it's brown, it's dead. If there's any green, then it's still alive. If you scrape it and like you start at the edge and you scrape it and it's brown, go 2 inches down and scrape again. So basically, if it was still green, like you cut off all of the brown area. That's what pruning is, right? And so we did, and we cut them down to basically nothing. And I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to come back from this, man. This was a massacre. But they are actually coming back from it. So I'm sure we won't get any blooms this year. But hopefully next year, maybe we will have some blooms. For the banner here, I chose to do some cool grays just to add some shadows and color the banner white. So you can see I'm just adding some shading to the left and right hand sides for the top of the banner. I am extending it out in the middle just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more movement. And then the parts that wrap around, it already has like a diagonal line drawn into it, so it's already going to be darker. I just filled it in with the darker color, and then the tails, I did the same way. To stamp this part, this is the part that actually says, I think it says Spring Pansies. I am just using, what is this, Pitch Black from Hero Arts. That is why I did my coloring before I did my stamping, so I wouldn't have to use a Copic Safe ink. just because those are a bit bolder in the black. These dies for the spring seeds are a bit different than the Seeds of Kindness honey cuts. These actually cut out the full design, and then I also cut out my seed packet. I'm using my Honeybee Teflon bone folder. I don't know if this is common knowledge. Did you guys know that they had these? They're really great. They have a large size and a small size. I'm using the large size here. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to fold in all of the pre-scored lines to put my seed packet together. And then once I have those all scored, you can see there's two edges that are like mitered. They're cut at a diagonal that are meant to fit together, which will seal up the bottom. This is is it thin rip tape? I'm not sure. It's also from Honeybee. I'll link it below. You're supposed to be able to rip it, which you can, and I have in the past. But because I have such defined edges here, I wanted to make sure that I was cutting them accordingly and that they were going to fit and not leave any ruffled edges. So once I have I just put adhesive on those two little side, like on the side and then on the bottom. And then I will be able to remove the release paper and then just fold them up on top of themselves, and it will seal my little seed packet. And you could even use these seed packets with all kinds of other things. Like, you don't even necessarily need to use them with the spring seeds. They're super cute, just little like envelopes that look like seed packets. So then once I have that, I'm going to give it a good press, and then you'll be able to see how it kind of pops open. And then I'll just adhere the die cut pansies right on top of it. If you did not purchase the die cuts, you could stamp this right on top of your seed packet and then just color it up, and that would be totally fine as well. So just using my Honeybee Precision Glue, I'm going to put this together, and then we're going to move on to putting together all of the flowers. Did we do that already? No, we did that already. We put together all of the flowers. We're going to put together the whole card. What am I even saying? Yeah, we're going to put together the whole card next. And I did do all of my arranging kind of off screen. Oh, this is what we're going to put together. That's why I was seeing that. I forgot to put these together beforehand. And you can see that this one is a bit darker than the other ones. But that's because that's the one that I did first before I switched over to the E53. And then these they're going to kind of be my background. It's almost going to look like a centerpiece. You know what I'm saying? That was the intention. I am going to use my press and seal, but I am cheap. And I previously cut this piece of press and seal in half, and I wasn't picking out a new piece of press and seal. So I'm just going to adhere these back to each other and use it as one whole piece. Now, if you look at the bottom, see how the wood section is sticking out of the flower? This bothers me. It still bothers me. And I made this card like a week ago. If you're seeing how like the stump is sticking out of the flower, that's how it was intended to be. Here, right there. And I can always see it on the playback. See how now there's no stump sticking out from behind that flower? Well, guess what? That's how I adhere it, because I don't realize that it's moved. So it's very interesting watching yourself back on the playback, because then you can see where the things went awry when you're, because you can't tell when you're in the middle of it. So yeah, but anyway, so the technology got me today, and I decided I was just gonna roll with it, because if I don't just embrace whatever it is, then I'm going to be in a situation where I am right now, where I have 3 videos that are done, but they're not like completely edited, or they're not voiced over, or they're not posted, because I let that timeline just get me. So now I'm not on a timeline. I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna do, and the content will be here for you to watch when you want to watch it. So I've done a video before on this hinge method for the press and seal. Basically, you're just going to go through each layer, add glue, glue it down, pick it back up, add glue, glue it down, pick it back up, all that jazz. So once that is done, here's where I'm putting on the seed packet. So if you wanted the seed packet to be removable, don't do this. Put a third flower in the center there, and then put your seed packet on top of it with repositionable like tape runner. So that way you can just pull it off and then you still have an intact card. But like I said, I'm not particularly worried about that. Like they could just take it off. So you could see I when I was adhering down that I taped the back of mine, they could take it off, take the seeds out, and just go on their way. But if you wanted it to be a card that they could keep, then I would put a third flower in the center and use repositionable adhesive. So yeah, that's it. That's the whole card. I hope you guys learned a little something. I hope that you're inspired, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.